In this video, I will demonstrate how you can apply metadata tagging to each statement that you add into InfraNodus graph. This allows for category-aware filtering, so you can explore and analyze the graph by specific dimensions or segments that matter to you. For example, in this case, I have a graph that visualizes the news of the day. These are the news that are imported from top 5 newspapers: Financial Times, New York Times, The Guardian, and so on. So this graph gives me a general idea of the main topics that are in the news today. For instance, there is some news on trade dynamics, geopolitical strikes, hostage crisis, and rebel conflict. Now imagine if I would like to see how those categories differ by newspaper. So the general news of the day is talking about those topics. But for example, I can go into the filter on the left panel here. I click here and then I can say, okay, show me only the news, for example, that appear in the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal. So I select those two tags, categories, right? Then I click highlight, and then InfraNodus will show me how those two newspapers embed into the general discourse. And as you can see from the graph, they cover it actually pretty well. The only thing that doesn't happen here is, for instance, they don't mention UK, because obviously they're from the States. And then there are some topics here, like Europe. So obviously we see that they're not talking about the European topics. And on the contrary, we can also go to the filter and, for example, ask us to show what The Guardian is talking about and how it embeds into the general news discourse of the day. And we can see that, okay, they're covering all the main topics, but some stuff they're not really talking about. So, for example, the Pope, elections, and so on, right? And then also there is something here about Gaza, which they're not talking about, and hostages, and freeing hostages, and so on, right? So this is what The Guardian is not talking about. What you can also do is to actually apply filter and recalculate the whole analytics. So if I do the same thing and I select Washington Post and Wall Street Journal, I can select the toggle here, filter and recalculate analytics, and then it will show me not only how those two news discourses embed into the general one, but filter it from the rest and show me what are those two newspapers are talking about only. So then it cleans the graph and just shows only these two topics. And then you can see that it's talking about war tensions here, Trump deportations, then there's a strike response, Pakistan, India conflict, China relations, and then there is more topics on Gaza, aid, Gaza hostage support, and so on, right? And then if I choose, on the contrary, like I remove those filters here, and then I can ask it to show me what The Guardian is talking about, and for example, New York Times together, right? I select those two tags, and then I click filter and recalculate analytics, and then when I do that, it will recalculate the whole thing, and then I will see that they're actually talking more about migrant crisis, so they're much more interested on migration than the Wall Street Journal and Washington Post, but they're also talking about drone warfare, drone strikes, Russia, Ukraine. They're not talking about China so much, it looks like, only a little bit. It's much less relevant here. And they're talking much more about Pope elections and also Europe and UK. So there you can see how those two discourses are different. And this is a pretty interesting way to segment your analysis and to analyze data by different categories, which can be pretty useful. You can also do that actually when you analyze several files. So for example, here I'll show you, I will import a collection of files that I have, which are transcripts from interviews with former drug users. So here we have about 7 files. I can import them all as a graph. I will treat them as audio transcripts, add a new graph, and then you will have quite a big knowledge graph as a result. And you can also use those filters to filter them by interviews. So for example, I can say, okay, show me the transcripts of the conversations only with Tristan here, okay? How it embeds into the discourse. Okay, it's actually, he's covering almost all the topics. Rick, also how he embeds into the discourse. But I can also apply this filter and recalculate and just only see the graph of the statements that Rick is talking about. And as you can see, it shows here, it's 121 statements, and in total, there are 659 statements. So that's like a very easy way to filter the results by tags. You can also do a very powerful segment analysis using CSV files. So here I'm going to import a CSV file, a spreadsheet, with the search queries that people use when they try to find InfraNodus on Google. So I select this exported file, which I got from Google Search Console, but you can also use any CSV from any search engine optimization tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush. And then I choose this file. I say, okay, I want to analyze the top queries that people use to find InfraNodus, and I will also add the position. The numbers are not shown in the graph, so I'm just using it as a reference to have it in the same statement. And then on the next page, I can tell InfraNodus which columns are going to be used for filtering. And I'm selecting all of them. I'm selecting the number of clicks that the search query gets, the number of impressions, the click-through rate, and the position in the search results. Okay, so that means that InfraNodus will create quantile buckets that will contain those values. And by the way, if that was text data, it would be maybe a little bit easier. Like you could have survey responses, and those columns that you use to filter the results by could be, for example, gender of respondents, or their location, or their age bracket, and so on. So you can use any data you want. Here I have numbers. I select them. I click next. I choose the new graph that I'm going to save it to, click enter, click visualize. And what's going to happen is that InfraNodus visualizes the search queries that are used to find InfraNodus here as a graph. The co-occurrences are the connections, so I can see the patterns of keywords that people use to find InfraNodus. Now, this filtering feature is very powerful because, as you can see, it's quite a lot of information. And when I do search engine optimization, I want to focus on the keyword combinations that I have a chance to rank for. And that will also bring me good results. So how do I do that? Very simple. I can use the filters also. So one thing I can do is to select the tags here in the filters and say, okay, show me the ones that have a high number of impressions. Let's say I select impressions from 1,794 and also from 200. This seems like a decent amount of impressions. I click highlight, and I can see that actually most of the keywords, they have a relatively high number of impressions. Okay, so that means that they're all quite popular keywords. Now, what I can also do is to ask InfraNodus to instead show me impressions with 1,794 and more, but with the low click-through rate, because this is where InfraNodus is shown a lot, but is not really rated for, because it's not on the first pages, so people don't click on it so much, so this is why the click-through rate is very low. Okay, so I choose these two categories. It shows me the graph, and now something very important. Now it shows me those both categories, because by default, when you select the categories, it's just showing you both of them. It merges them together. So what I want to do here is that I want to go back in the filter and ask to filter statements that contain all the selected tags. So it's only going to show me the overlap between the two. And this is very important. So which statements have a tag with impressions 1,794 and above, and at the same time, a low click-through rate. Okay, so then I click highlight, and here I have a really clear insight. Text network visualization tool has a low number of CTR, high impressions, and it's on the position, average position 9.6. So that means this is a really good keyword to target, because InfraNodus already shows on the first page, but it's not at the very top of the search results. So that means that I could target it better in order to reach good results and get a lot of clicks. And now I can actually use other filters. So for example, I can say, okay, show me some words, let's say with impressions, a little bit lower number of impressions, because maybe that's like a very popular keyword, but with the same CTR that's low. Click highlight and see there's much more results here. Okay, so for example, text network analysis, text graph visualization, network analysis tool, and so on. So I can see this 31 keyword combinations that have an intersection of the relatively high number of impressions, 200 to 1,700, and low CTR. And as you can see, their position, average search result position is like 7, 12, 19. So it means they're at the bottom of the first page or second or third page. So that means they're also quite good keywords to target. And what I can also do here is to click filter and recalculate analytics while keeping this overlap filter here. So that means I'm showing the overlap of the tags, and I'm going to recalculate the graph, and then it will just show me a very clean visualization of the keywords I should target on if I want to rank higher in search results. So for instance, here I have text analysis, and I can click here, text analysis AI text analysis tool. So this is something I should work on, make sure that I rank for this, because people search for that, but InfraNodus is still on the second page, so it means I need to analyze the search results for that. And then also we have this other cluster, knowledge visualization, right? So this green one here, graph visualization software. Okay, so that's good. I will target that. Knowledge graph tool. Okay, this is very low position, so maybe this is too early to work on. I need to first focus on the ones that are higher up. Okay, and then also Obsidian graph plugin. Okay, this is good. There is a good chance here because it's position 6, 7. If I move a few positions up, then I can get to the better results. So you see, I'm kind of using these filters to show these overlaps, highlight and then filter, and then I can get to really interesting insights that I wouldn't otherwise see. So then I can remove the filter here and then, click cancel, and then I see the whole graph again. So this filtering feature is very powerful because as I have just shown you, you can use it to analyze news discourse, you can use it to analyze any kind of number of files and see by the file segments, and you can also even use it in search engine optimization analysis when you're analyzing search queries or survey responses and so on. And by the way, you can also add these tags manually. So for example, if I add a new text, let's say I'm writing an article on using InfraNodus for search engine optimization, I create a new graph. I say I want to add a plain text like this, add it here. You see I have a statement here, and then I can actually click edit the statement. I can add a new tag. So this is, for example, tips. Then I save this graph here. So when I reload the graph, save this graph here, tips, add a new tag. And now this has this tag, tips. And then if I add a second statement, I can add another statement, and I can say that philosophical inquiries can help us understand reality. And this is, for example, going to be in the category of philosophy. Add a new tag here, click save. Okay, and so for example, now you see I have two statements, one with tips, one with philosophy. If I reload the graph, you will see them again. And now I can also use them for filters. So for example, I can select tag philosophy, then I only see the statement that belongs to philosophy, or I can also select the tag tips, I see the tag tips, and I can select them both at the same time, and then you see I have them both at the same time. So you can also apply them manually, and you can add several tags to the same statements, and soon we're rolling out a feature where you will select a few statements and can apply tags to a few statements at the same time as well. So that will be very useful for coding, for example, when you're working with thematic analysis. This can be a really useful approach as well. So I hope you find it useful. Try it out. Let me know if you have any feedback or comments or questions about this. And I think it's a very powerful feature, so I'm very excited for you to give me feedback on how you find it useful for you and how it could be improved. Thank you.